Faruzan is coming up soon, and with its release we will most certainly see the introduction of many new playstyles, yet I thought it'd be fun to have a look at all of Genshin's current game changers before the region comes out, and rank them based on their current positions in the meta against each other before Natlan completely flips the meta on its head like a pancake. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. We're gonna be ranking these characters based on not only how much they improve the teams that they are put in, but how good is the team that they are actually tied to. After all, you could be the best physical Nahida buffer in the world, but you're a physical Nahida buffer, that was your first mistake. But how good they make their respective teams will play a large aspect in their rankings. I will also be ranking these characters as if they are specifically being played for their niche support role. What I mean by this is that even though you could theoretically use Mika as a Farina healer on the whole in any team, since he was made for Eula, I would be ranking him from the perspective of improving Eula's team specifically. This is because I want to evaluate how good these characters are at their main specific function, being a niche support. And as always, please do know that these are just my opinions, and I'm not saying that these rankings are definitive and that you absolutely must abide by them. You are absolutely free to disagree down in the comments below, and I would love for you to share your own thoughts in regards to my rankings, where you'd personally move the characters and why, and feel free to call me out on anything I might have forgotten. I'm also not including Xian, Yan, and Beloved Venti in this list, because in my opinion, they just aren't niche. Xian Yan enables plunging and buffs it for every character while being able to play just like Jean, who is extremely flexible since she can slot into any team to provide great healing. And sweet Venti is because heavy AoE just isn't quote-unquote niche in my opinion. It doesn't exist in Abyss 12 very much, sure, but he groups way more enemies than you'd expect, and pretty much everywhere outside of floor 12 has trash mobs. Plus, even in floor 12, a 4VV holding Animo just doesn't feel niche enough to me anyway. In any case, we're all just here to have fun, so now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's get into it. I want to start with Faruzan because she is my favorite niche support. This is for good reason. She is genuinely one of the most powerful specialist characters that Genshin Impact has ever introduced. She checks both of my boxes incredibly. She buffs up Xiao and Wanderer teams to a ridiculous extent, making her feel like an absolute staple in those comps. As for how good she makes her respective teams, Xiao paired with a C6 Faruzan honestly feels like a top tier hyper carry. Genuinely an incredible feel to that team, which I wholeheartedly recommend you give a shot. She makes Wanderer feel complete, honestly. It makes sense since Wanderer was designed with Faruzan in mind, and they almost always share a banner, so all you Scaramouche enjoyers out there will most likely have at least one copy. If not, then I'm surprised, shout yourselves out in the comments down below. Even at C0 where she's at her clunkiest, Faruzan is still a ridiculous DPS increase to both Xiao and Wanderer, and is infinitely worth your time if you're into those two Animo DPSs. And then, her C6 form is absolutely game-breaking. Her main flaw is that pre-C6, her energy requirements are massive, but if you stick her on a Favonius bow and build a considerable amount of ER on her, then she can actually act as a pretty nice battery in both Xiao and Wanderer teams. On the whole, an incredible niche support. She achieves everything that her kit sets out to do, and then some. As a niche support, her functionality is perfect, and she absolutely fulfills her kit's main purpose of being the premier Animo buffer, solidifying her place in Genshin Impact for eternity. Eternity mentioned? S tier, I think we all saw this one coming. Kujou Sara is a pretty good niche support in my opinion. She sets out to be an Electro buffer who can help your Electro DPSs deal a large front-loaded amount of damage. She was designed to work with Raiden, and while she works wonders with her, she's also gained a new use case more recently with Hypercarry Clorand. In Raiden teams, she's honestly a very nice increase to the Shogun's own personal DPS, and a C6 Kujou Sara makes a C0 Raiden's DPS feel not that bad. What I do want to say is that nowadays, since we have much stronger DPSs in the Genshin meta, you can't really justify using a Hypercarry buffer with a C0 Raiden, as opposed to just running her as a team driver or a Hyper Bloom trigger, but at C2 Raiden, Kujou Sara is an absolutely formidable staple. And if your Clorand is high investment, I'd say that Clorand Hyper and Clorand Overload are honestly not bad feeling teams at all, and Kujou Sara helps in elevating it. She makes Raiden Hyper feel worth your time, and Clorand Hyper a possible thing to play. So for those reasons, I think she achieves what she sets out to do. My main problem with her is how Kujou Sara pre-C2 feels borderline unplayable with how clunky she is, and her buffing is a lot more underwhelming pre-C6. She gets her job done well, good unit, very front-loaded, and can do some of her own sub-DPS with her burst. However, replacements are feasible. Top of B tier. So, Shenhe is an interesting one. The value of the buffs she provides is extremely high, with the flat damage increase being super incredible in value, plus she can hold 4-piece noblesse. So for Ayaka freeze comps, Shenhe is an absolute godsend. Her functionality with Ganyu is not bad either, if you opt to play Ganyu Shenhe Melt. That's honestly a pretty great Ganyu team. The issue of Shenhe isn't herself, it's more that she's tied to characters who aren't very meta relevant right now. Ayaka and Ganyu are not bad, I completely disagree with that notion, they are perfectly serviceable, but they have absolutely been power crept, and Shenhe doesn't do enough to bring them up to the levels of the Fontaine DPSs. Does she make them feel good even in the current day? Yes. Has she managed to keep them from power creep? No. Shenhe is very much an investment that you only make if you live and breathe in the name of Cryo. Otherwise, her value is essentially tied to how good Ayaka currently is, and to a lesser extent, how good Ganyu also currently is. B tier. Her buffs are very high quality, the unit herself is great, and the moment that Cryo becomes meta, Shenhe shoots right up to S tier. But for now, this is where her overall meta value lies. Yun-Jin is interesting. The normal attack buffs and attack speed buffs she provides are extremely good for normal attack based DPSs that attack at a super fast pace. Her buffs turn Yoimiya from garbage to bad, however. I know people love Yoimiya, so this is gonna annoy a lot of people, but it's the truth. She's way too single target locked and gained no real buffs throughout the Fontaine era, while her main competitor Hu Tao got Xian Yun Plunge and Arlecchino came out, providing even more pyro DPS competition. Yoimiya only got worse and worse thanks to the rising power levels of Fontaine. However, what saves Yun-Jin's ranking here is that Chlorant Hypercarry is also a thing. I've already mentioned how at higher Chlorant investments, this team is honestly pretty worth your time. What I will say is that the reason this isn't putting Yun-Jin that much higher is because Chlorant Hypercarry tends to lose out to Chlorant Aggravate and Overload. I've also seen some of my comments mention how Yun-Jin is good synergy with Wanderer, which is also true. If a DPS comes out someday that's in full need of Yun-Jin services, I can see her meta value rising a lot. B tier with high potential to move up. Yes, Overload Savior, Chevreuse my goat. She replaced Kazuha and Raiden Hyper to pretty great effect, and just on the whole made Overload a team comp actually worth considering. Also, Chlorant Overload is a very solid team for her that's well worth a spin. Chevreuse is what allows this to be a good alternative option. She's amazing right out of the gate at C0 while being incredible at C6. Really good unit for any investment level. On the whole, Chevreuse gave Overload a spot on the map, which is genuinely impressive. Her main flaw is that sometimes the teams she fits into need the other units to be Pyro and Electro, even when it isn't ideal. But like in Chlorant Overload, it's a shame you can't run Yun-Jin there. Imagine if Yun-Jin was Pyro or Electro, then that team would be flying. A tier, only not an S because of that aforementioned flaw, but you could easily make a case for her being an S. Gorou has many great qualities. He's a great Bennett equivalent for Ito teams, and he also buffs on-field Chiori to an absolutely excellent extent. I specify on-field Chiori, since off-field Chiori can't snapshot. He can hold Elegy for the end and has a wonderful crit buffing C6. If your Gorou is C6 and has Elegy, then you can even make a rare case for him being your Navia's second partner Geo. Yes, his def buffs will mean nothing, but his Geo application is very solid and the aforementioned are good buffs. Don't knock it till you try it. But he seriously makes Ito and on-field Chiori much stronger and definitely succeeds in this primary goal. The main issue is that both of these units are mid, and a lot of his value is lost on Navia, so while he is absolutely excellent for Geo teams, we just need some better def scaling Geo units. He suffers from the same issue as Shenhe, simply being tied to both characters and an element that are simply irrelevant as of now. B tier with potential to move up in the future if Geo on the whole gets buffed. Mika is conflicting, because on one hand, this guy is an amazing Farina healer. But on the other hand, this video is focusing on niche supports and their specific niche teams. So while you theoretically could use Mika anywhere as long as you're using Farina, I'm gonna focus on his more niche Eula teams. The great thing about Mika is that he enables the use of Farina and Eula teams, which is a big DPS increase for her. His C6 also contains some meaty buffing, and his physical bonus provision isn't half bad for her either. If you take Farina out of a Eula team and you just run her older teams, then Mika becomes a side grade if not a slight upgrade to C6 Rosaria, since she has some physical res shred at C6. Otherwise, using Farina equals Eula gets her vengeance. The main issue is that he's tied to Eula, and fixing Eula is a tall ask. Not even slapping C6 Mika and a Farina in the team can solve her core issues regarding backload, clunk, and long rotation time. Mika Farina will absolutely help her clear better, but literally any of her DPS is better than Eula, and can use those two better, which just makes her feel laughable. Does he improve Eula teams? Yes! Does he fix Eula? No! C tier, though I'm a little unsure on this placement. Let me know if you think I'm underestimating Mika down below in the comment section. Ultimately, every single one of these characters has a use case, and they do indeed end up making one or two of the game's teams a whole lot better, and for that reason, I'd say they're all viable in their own way. But I still thought that looking at the current meta value of all of Genshin's niche supports would be interesting, since Natlan is most definitely going to shake things up again. I urge you to share your own thoughts down below in the comments, and maybe even consider subscribing while you're at it. Remember to join my Discord and follow my Twitter. Both of those links will be down below in the pinned comment and description. My Ko-Fi will also be in both of those places if you're interested in supporting me. Otherwise, feel free to check out my channel memberships, which I've opened up recently as of posting. You can gain access to some cool emotes. More perks and tiers coming soon. I also don't mention this much, but I stream on Twitch. Check me out at twitch.tv/JuiceChanYT if you want to catch me live sometimes playing Genshin, Wuthering Waves, Honkai Star Rail, and much more other things. Hopefully this video was able to give you some food for thought in regards to the current meta value of all of Genshin's niche supports. This has been Juice, signing out. And I'm still waiting for that dedicated Navia support, Hoyoverse. I'm at your door.